It's not one screen, two films. It's one screen, two viewers, and one of those viewers
is a pathological liar.
Viva Fry, former Montreal litigator turned current floor rumbler, and we have our daily dose of the Trump trial update. The trial is over from an evidentiary perspective. That is to say, there are no more witnesses after the defense called their one and only witness, attorney Bob Costello. Now we are waiting a week for closing arguments, or summations, as they say in the practice. And oh my goodness, anybody who says this trial went well for the prosecution is a pathological liar and probably a journalist at MSNBC. We are no longer living in a world of one screen, two films. We are living in a world of one screen, two viewers, and one of those viewers is a liar. We have now witnessed this trial, the most ridiculous trial ever, let alone the fact that it's the first time a president has been criminally prosecuted. They didn't go after George Bush Jr. for lying about weapons of mass destruction and droning the world into a regime change war in Iraq that ended up killing something like 500,000 Iraqis and children. No, they didn't go after George Bush.
We have heard that 500,000 children have died. I mean, that's more children than died in Hiroshima. And you know, is the price worth it?
I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it.
They didn't go after Osama bin Laden for the extrajudicial drone assassination of an American citizen and their 16-year-old child. Nope, they went after Donald John Trump for a misdemeanor that was bumped up to a 34-charge felony indictment, rubbish election interference prosecution. Outrageous. And the trial has come to an end, and it was an absolute joke, highlighted by the absolute corruption and political bias of the judge, Juan Marchand. Now, I presume all of you are up to speed on the trial if you are on this channel, because I've been posting periodic or quasi-daily updates on the trial. The last witness, or it was the only witness of the defense, Bob Costello, who was but wasn't Michael Cohen's attorney, who was mandated by Michael Cohen but stiffed by Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen, who would never accept a pardon from Donald Trump, except for the fact that he mandated Bob Costello to reach out to Rudy Giuliani to see if Michael Cohen could get a pardon from Donald Trump. Yeah, that Bob Costello. And my goodness, anybody saying that Bob Costello's testimony was terrible is a liar or a journalist at MSNBC. But what was amazing, truly amazing, was the interaction between Bob Costello and the judge. I didn't realize how bad the judge's reaction
actually was.
I covered this yesterday in the daily update vlog, but I didn't realize how bad the situation was. I talked about how the prosecution was objecting to some of the questions that the defense was asking Bob Costello, and the judge was sustaining all of those objections basically reflexively, and the judge was sustaining those objections so quickly, sometimes the objection came before the question was finished, and the objection was sustained before the question was even finished. And Bob Costello, who is a well-respected attorney, well, he was so taken aback by the conduct of the judge. At one point he said, geez, and apparently gave the judge an eye roll, at which point the judge ordered that the courtroom be cleared so that he could reprimand Bob Costello. And I didn't realize how bad this was until I listened to Alan Dershowitz's most recent podcast. He goes into it for about 30 minutes or so. He was in the courtroom yesterday, and when the judge asked the courtroom to be cleared, he didn't clear Alan Dershowitz for whatever the reason. So Dersh was in the courtroom watching the judge lose his SHI tizzle. And according to Alan Dershowitz, the judge actually threatened to strike the testimony of Bob Costello. Now, bear in mind, Bob Costello is the witness for the defense. So the judge threatened to prejudice the rights of the defendant by striking the testimony of their witness because he didn't like the way the witness rolled his eyes at the judge and said, geez. Now, let me tell you something. For those of you who think I'm just a crazy person yelling at a camera, I practiced law for over 13 years. This is by no means the worst thing you've ever seen in a courtroom by a long shot. Sometimes witnesses argue with the judges. Sometimes the witnesses call judges names. The fact that the witness, Bob Costello, merely rolled his eyes and said, geez, because the judge was sustaining basically every single objection that the prosecution raised, even before the question was asked. Bob Costello knew the conduct of the judge was outrageous. He said as much. The judge knew his own conduct was outrageous, and he was humiliated in front of the jury, humiliated in front of the press, and so he ordered the courtroom to be cleared so that he could reprimand Bob Costello. Now, ultimately, the judge did not strike the testimony of Bob Costello because it would have been a judicially outrageous thing to do. Bob Costello came out and basically confirmed that Michael Cohen was out of his mind when the DOJ, or when the prosecutors were going after him, that he said, I have nothing on Donald Trump. Why are they coming after me? Bob Costello also confirmed that Michael Cohen did reach out to him so that he could reach out to Giuliani so that he could float the idea of a pardon, thus confirming yet another one of Michael Cohen's many lies on the stand, that he didn't ask for a pardon and that it was Trump who was floating a pardon over his head as sort of like a carrot on a stick to get Michael Cohen's collaboration, when it was in fact the exact opposite. Although Michael Cohen, holy cows, did he do a good enough job making himself look like the liar and the thief that he is? He in fact admitted to multiple actual real crimes on the stand, so much so that Robert Barnes had to put out a wonderful tweet highlighting all of the crimes that Michael Cohen admitted to during his testimony. Robert Barnes at Barnes_law. Crimes #Cohen confessed to or admitted the evidence of in the #Trump trial. 1. Perjury. Lots and lots of perjury. 2. Tax fraud. 3. Business fraud. 4. Embezzlement from Trump. 5. Theft from Trump. 6. Currency structuring to avoid getting caught for all of the above. Because bear in mind, when Michael Cohen testified to the effect that he went to the TD Bank and took out like $50,000 over the course of several days, and he put that cash in brown paper bags, and then he subsequently stole $30,000 of that money, he testified to the effect that he took it out in the denominations that he did so that he could not exceed the daily limits. So he even withdrew the amounts in such a manner to facilitate the crime while stealing from his own client that he was representing. So yeah, Bob Costello's testimony was mildly useful for the defense, to put it mildly. Otherwise, the judge would have never threatened to strike it in its entirety, but the judge didn't strike it. The judge let everyone back into the courtroom after having blown a gasket at the fact that a lawyer humiliated him, mocked him, and humiliated him in front of the press. The only idiots who didn't get the memo were the idiots at MSNBC.
Michael Cohen decided not to hire Robert Costello, and today anyone could see why. For once, the worst criminal defense lawyer in the room was not one employed by Donald Trump. I have not seen a worse criminal defense lawyer than Robert Costello, or a stupider one. Based on just what we saw him do on the witness stand today in court, Trump criminal defense lawyer Emil Bovee did the questioning. Assistant Attorney Susan Hoffinger did the objecting to Attorney Bovee's questions. Almost all of the district attorney's objections were sustained instantly by Judge Merchan, who makes very quick decisions about objections. But because Robert Costello answered questions even quicker than that, his answers frequently were entered in the record just as the objection was being raised.
Here you have the MSNBC talking head idiot Lawrence O'Donnell rightly observing that the judge was instantly maintaining all the objections raised by the prosecution as relates to the defense questions, without realizing that what this guy is actually observing is not a judge doing his job quickly. It is a biased judge doing the political bidding so as to manifest his political bias to see Trump behind bars. And I keep saying it's not one screen, two films, it's one screen, two viewers, and one of the viewers are lying idiots when they come out and say the judge systematically, instantly maintaining, sustaining all of the objections from the prosecution. Well, that's a sign of a judge doing his job well, because he really thinks quick on his feet. Horse crap. It's a sign of political bias. It's a sign of professional incompetence and professional corruption. And worse than that, yesterday when I observed that the judge, in addressing the equivalent of the motion for directed verdict, where the defense is basically going to present a motion that the judge himself needs to dismiss all the charges because no reasonable jury could come to the conclusion that Trump is guilty of whatever the crime the prosecution suggests he is. Well, the judge said, you're not going to fool 12 New Yorkers. They're very savvy people. So if Michael Cohen has lied so much on the stand, and if this case is such rubbish, well, the 12 jurors who are New Yorkers and they're savvy and they can sniff out a lie, well, they'll surely acquit. Well, that response perfectly illustrates the absolute corrupt judicial bias of the judge, where he is basically implicitly recognizing that this case is bogus, but he doesn't want to dismiss it because he wants to take his chances with a jury finding. So yeah, this is pure corrupt, and I would dare argue criminal election interference being carried out by the state itself. But my goodness, the idiots at the MSNBC propagandist hack network, they're not done embarrassing themselves yet. This is an actual headline from MSNBC. How Michael Cohen's past lies make him a more credible witness. The silver lining to this crazy cloud is that when these MSNBC journalists lose their jobs, at the very least they can apply to the Babylon Bee. But MSNBC by no means has the monopoly on moronic, idiot, talking head, loser, propagandist hacks who will lie to your face, who will spit in your face and say that it's raining. You also have Stephen King. And you may have noticed, if you spend as much time on social media as I do, that the idiots online today, their new talking point was that Donald Trump is a coward for not testifying in his own trial. Stephen King wasted no time repeating that idiotic talking point. Stephen King at Stephen King. So Trump was too chicken shit to testify. And then you have the tear-faced laughy emoji guy. The word might get overused, but these idiots are actual straight-up commies. They like to believe in guilty until proven innocent. You can prove your innocence at a criminal trial, and now they assume guilt if you don't testify in your own defense in a whacked-out, absolutely politically bullshit persecution. And I had to let Stephen King know as much. Viva Fry at the Viva Fry, because a totally corrupt prosecution would not then attempt to corruptly manufacture a charge of perjury, right? It's a shame what TDS has done to your brain. I would say it has turned it into horseshit, but even horseshit serves a useful purpose of manure. You have just become a destructive force. Hope it feels good. And like I predicted a couple of days ago, although it was an easy prediction to make, the narrative is shifting in real time from Stormy Daniels' star witness, Michael Cohen's star witness, to ignore those liars and porn stars. We never needed their testimony in the first place. The case can be proven on its own. Michael Cohen's testimony was only necessary to corroborate the documentary evidence, which does not prove what they say it proves. Because bear in mind, and it's worth highlighting, this entire case hinges on Michael Cohen's testimony that a 1.5-minute phone call to Donald Trump to structure this Stormy Daniels deal, where Donald Trump purportedly told him to structure it in an illegal manner to conceal the nature of that payment for the purposes of election interference. Well, that 90-second phone call was actually Michael Cohen calling up Donald Trump's security to complain about 14-year-olds who got his number and were pranking him. That is the linchpin in this absolutely outrageous, bogus case. A liar, a convicted perjurer, a man who admits to having stolen $30,000 or maybe $60,000 so that it's $30,000 after tax. A man who admits to having stolen tens of thousands of dollars from his own client after having taken that money out in small enough increments not to get flagged, put it in a brown paper bag and keep it. Yeah, he says, I called Donald Trump and we structured this deal illicitly, unlawfully in that 90-second call where I was also complaining about 14-year-olds who were pranking me. This case is nonsense. If Judge Marchand does not dismiss this case before it even gets to a jury, he is a corrupt hack, which we all know that he is. This is going to go to the jury. I think he's still going to get convicted, and it's going to be a condemnation of the judicial system in America. It's going to bring America down to the level of Russia, of North Korea, of all of the third world country, banana republic, kangaroo court, authoritarian regimes that Joe Biden condemns, because Joe Biden is and has always been the villain that he accuses others of being. We'll see where this goes, but if you like what I do, make sure that you are subscribed. Make sure that your notifications are turned on. It's a free, easy way of supporting the channel. If you want to support the channel through vivabarneslaw.locals.com, that is the bestest way to join a super above average community. But more important than anything, get out there, exercise, eat healthy, sunlight, talk to people in real life, and now you know your vlog. Peace out, peeps.
I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it.